The WWE Universe, the power you do wield. While your boos and disdain for Roman Reigns seem to fall on deaf ears, there have been plenty of times where that hasn't been the case at all, and making as much noise as possible has changed up plans, and more impressively, even the booking of certain wrestlers. Brought in as a good guy to be cheered and admired, instead they're soon switched to be a heel as wrestling nerds everywhere sit down and impressed with what they were able to achieve. It's an interesting process. It does happen though, and happens far more regularly in the modern era. Would never have been a thing back in the 70s, where responses were more in line with what the company wanted. Can you imagine Tito Santana today? He was so goody two-shoes he'd have been murdered by jeers, and that is definitely illegal. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 8 Babyfaces, the WWE Universe turned heel. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 8, The New Day. It seems ridiculous given how beloved they are in 2018, but when The New Day first arrived on the scene in November 2014, there was a slight disappointment from the fans. Expecting something with a bit of an edge, instead they got a whole lot of smiling, clapping and positivity, which was so on the nose it just got one big groan from the audience. If the creative team had latched onto this, the New Day boom may have started earlier, but initially they didn't get it at all, and instead ran it into the ground. So the audience rejected them immediately, and by the middle of 2015 the group had little choice but to turn. This was the best thing that could have happened though, because it allowed them to just turn all this nonsense right up and become ridiculously entertaining. As we know, when you do that, eventually you'll be turned back face because you're making people laugh, and that's where we've been ever since. It's a shame they didn't have the whole pancake thing back then though. Think of that, some evil dudes pimping out breaded goods. Only in wrestling. Number 7, Eva Marie. For some reason, WWE was obsessed with making Eva Marie a babyface. Convinced they could make it work, which sounds familiar, the real issue was her matches were never out of this world, and in this period within the industry, that was never gonna fly with the fans. So they verbally attacked her at any chance they could. This meant every time she had a long run she was a heel, but WWE always continued on this good guy fix when she had to go away and then return. Take WrestleMania 32 in 2016. Marie was revealed as the final entrant in the 10-woman tag match, and she was on the face side, and yes, still got booed. Finally, it was just accepted that this wasn't going to work. She was a bad guy for a while, and then just got released in June 2017. I bet at least once a month the writers still suggest to bring her back as the new face of the division, but I don't think that would work. Number 6, Alberto Del Rio. WWE's booking with Alberto Del Rio was just weird constantly. Remember when they split him up from Ricardo Rodriguez even though the act was great and neither man benefited from it? That was stupid, wasn't it? Yes, it was. There was a period, however, in late 2012 when Del Rio was World Heavyweight Champion and Vince McMahon and friends got this babyface role right. He showed great fire when defeating the Big Show in a Last Man Standing match and was set for a big WrestleMania feud against the now xenophobic Jack Swagger. Unfortunately, the All-American American then ran into personal problems, and that was that. Alberto hit a brick wall. Aside from the fact the fans tuned out, it was not helped by the fact Dolph Ziggler was Mr. Money in the Bank at the time and a darling of the hardcore audience. That is a bad recipe, like beef and cheesecake. So as you'd imagine, when the heel Ziggler cashed in on a pro babyface Del Rio the night after WrestleMania 29, everyone lost their minds, and that was the end. Del Rio's facedom was over. The crowd rejected Alberto and he had to be turned back heel, which was probably best for the character anyway. Number 5, Santino Marella. I truly think Santino Marella was underrated, especially when you buy into the idea that pro wrestling is supposed to be entertaining. I mean, who did that better than the fake Italian? By the time his career came to an end, the audience had accepted this too, and he was a beloved comedy character. All he had to do was hit someone with a snake, and he would be drowned in cheers of love. When he first arrived, though, as the local hometown hero, where he also won the IC title from Umaga, fans utterly despised him. Outside of the shock debut, Marella was treated like a joke, which was ironic, and when Umaga destroyed him to win the championship back, the Samoan Savage was treated as if he was there to save the world and then give everyone some money. Or in short, he was cheered a lot. A heel turn was the only option, and really this was best for Santino. He started to make people laugh in spite of themselves, and that made it all the more joyous. Number 4, Bret Hart. One of the best heel, but not actually a heel turn ever, Bret Hart turning his back on USA fans in 1997 was just wonderful. Annoyed by the lack of respect he believed he was being showed, Hart hated the American audience, and they hated him right back. It was perfect from both a storyline and reality perspective, as the timing was just right. This was also helped on thanks to the ever-changing WWE atmosphere. With the crowd ready to cheer a bald-headed man that didn't tick any of the boxes a babyface usually would, Bret served as the antithesis to all of that, and he bit into it without looking back. The crowd turned on Bret, so everything was put in place to do the trade at WrestleMania 13 in a truly legendary match. The Hitman came in the hero and out the other end as the dick, whereas the Rattlesnake went the other way. It was masterful in its execution, which is also ironic, and now sits with us all as a warm fuzzy memory that changed the business forever. Number 3, Randy Orton. Randy Orton is a prime example of someone falling foul to WWE creative being too eager. Experiencing one hell of a rise in 2004, he cemented himself as the new kid on the block after a ridiculously good and brutal clash with Mick Foley at Backlash before heading on to SummerSlam and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. In doing so, he became the youngest ever to achieve such a thing. Until this point, the fans had been behind Orton too, but WWE took this too much to heart and sped up his babyface turn without thinking how it may be perceived. Hence why a mere 24 hours later, his Evolution buddies turned on him just to show that yes, we should all definitely love Randy now. The problem was that Toronto, where he'd won the title, have always liked to do things a little differently, and that combined with how bland he was booked meant fans turned on him instantly. This was not the version of Randy they wanted to see. He soon dropped the belt to Triple H and then made his way back to being an asshole again, and that worked much better. Number 2, Batista. When Batista returned to WWE in 2014, it was quite the occasion. He had left 4 years prior after hitting a career high, and the animal was a star. This is why he was allowed to come back, win the Royal Rumble, and head towards the main event of WrestleMania 30. And who wouldn't want that? Well, the answer is the WWE Universe. Brought back as a babyface after Vince McMahon decided that was the only option, fans used Batista as the focus of all their, well, you're not Daniel Bryan hate, and they booed him out of the building. They felt like Dave's big return and just all over the yes man, and they weren't shy about letting their thoughts known. This all resulted in Batista just becoming a heel once a planned program with Alberto Del Rio was completed before he rolled into that triple threat match at WrestleMania. He even took the fall, which was probably seen as another victory for this vocal group. And you know what's worse? Batista wanted to come back as a bad guy during this run, but it got overruled. Whoops. Number 1, Rocky Maivia. A change so extreme and successful it's still used as an example today of what to do with babyfaces that aren't working. There will also probably never be a more famous case study in how to make a wrestler successful. Today, Dwayne Johnson is the highest paid actor in Hollywood, and it all began when he arrived on the scene as Rocky Maivia. Introduced to the then WWF world as a third-generation blue chipper who was all smiles, it was sickeningly dull and the fans knew it. He was as flat as a piece of paper. His wrestling inexperience certainly didn't help, and this combined with a change in attitudes from wrestling audiences meant they were soon chanting "Die, Rocky, die," which is a little bit harsh because it means they literally wanted this man to be killed. It was an early example of utter contempt shown by the fans, and before WWE acted, Rocky just had to grit his teeth and grin through it, and that made everything worse. It did mean that WWE had no choice but to turn him heel, which they did by aligning Maivia with the Nation of Domination. Rocky Maivia was dead, so the crowd got what they wanted, and he was replaced by The Rock, and in turn, we got one of the biggest rises in history, and how crazy is that when you look back on it?